What if I told you that everything you think you know about human civilization is wrong? What if the greatest city that ever existed wasn't built by the Romans, the Greeks, or any empire we learned about in school, but by a people so advanced that their technology would make our modern world look primitive? Tonight we're diving into forbidden waters. We're going to explore the mystery that has captivated humanity for over 2,000 years. A mystery that governments don't want you to investigate. A mystery that mainstream archaeologists refuse to acknowledge. A mystery that could rewrite everything we understand about our past. Because buried beneath the ocean waves, hidden from the eyes of the world, lies the truth about Atlantis. The lost city that wasn't just a story. The advanced civilization that didn't just disappear. The empire that holds secrets so profound they could change everything we believe about human potential. Most people assume they know the story. Plato made it up. It's just a philosophical allegory. A fictional tale designed to teach lessons about hubris and the fall of great civilizations. Simple, clean, case closed. But what if that's not the whole truth? What if Plato wasn't creating fiction but preserving memory? What if he was trying to warn us about something that really happened? What if Atlantis wasn't just a story but the most important story ever told? This isn't some fringe theory or wild speculation. This is about examining evidence that has been ignored, suppressed, or deliberately hidden for centuries. Evidence that suggests our understanding of ancient history is fundamentally flawed. Evidence that points to a civilization so advanced it challenges everything we've been taught about human development. Before we go any further, let me be clear about something. This journey we're about to take together will challenge you. It might shake beliefs you've held your entire life. It might force you to question everything you thought you knew about the ancient world. But here's what I promise you. By the end of this exploration, you'll have a deeper understanding of humanity's true potential. You won't just know the story of Atlantis. You'll understand why it matters. So settle in, open your mind, and prepare to discover the untold story of the lost city. Because what we're about to uncover isn't just ancient history. It's the key to understanding who we really are and what we're capable of becoming. Let's start with what we've been told. The official story. The one that's been repeated in textbooks, documentaries, and academic papers for decades. According to conventional wisdom, Atlantis was invented by the Greek philosopher Plato around 360 BCE. He wrote about it in two of his dialogues, the Timaeus and the Critias. In these works, Plato describes a powerful island nation that existed 9,000 years before his time. This civilization was incredibly advanced, with magnificent architecture, sophisticated technology, and a mighty navy that conquered much of the known world. But according to Plato's account, the Atlanteans became corrupt and arrogant. They angered the gods with their hubris and moral decay. As punishment, Zeus decided to destroy them. In a single day and night, the entire island was swallowed by violent earthquakes and floods, disappearing forever beneath the waves. Most scholars today dismiss this as pure allegory. They claim Plato invented Atlantis to illustrate philosophical points about ideal societies and the dangers of corruption. They point out that no other ancient source mentions this civilization. They argue that if such a massive empire had existed, surely someone else would have written about it. But here's where things get interesting. What if the absence of other sources isn't proof that Atlantis didn't exist? What if it's proof that information about it was deliberately suppressed? What if there's a reason why this knowledge was hidden from the world? Because when you start digging deeper into Plato's account, you discover something remarkable. The details he provides aren't vague or mythological. They're specific, technical, and surprisingly accurate to real geographical and geological phenomena. He describes the exact dimensions of the island. He explains the layout of the city in precise detail. He even provides information about the metals, animals, and plants that existed there. This doesn't sound like someone making up a story. This sounds like someone preserving a historical record. Someone who had access to information that has since been lost to time. And here's something that should make you pause and think. Plato claimed he got this information from ancient Egyptian priests. According to his account, these priests possessed records that went back thousands of years. Records that described events from long before the rise of Egyptian civilization itself. Now we know that ancient Egypt was obsessed with record keeping. They documented everything. Wars, treaties, natural disasters, astronomical events. If anyone would have preserved information about a great catastrophe that destroyed an advanced civilization, it would be them. But here's the mystery. Most of these ancient Egyptian records have been lost, destroyed, or remain untranslated. The Library of Alexandria, which contained the greatest collection of ancient knowledge in the world, was burned. Countless papyrus scrolls were lost to time, flood, and fire. What if the evidence for Atlantis was destroyed along with everything else? What if we're not looking at a lack of evidence, but the systematic destruction of evidence? This brings us to one of the most intriguing aspects of the Atlantis mystery. The pattern of suppression and ridicule that surrounds anyone who tries to investigate it seriously. For over a century, researchers who have proposed that Atlantis might have been real have been marginalized, discredited, or ignored by mainstream academia. Their funding has been cut. Their careers have been destroyed. Their research has been buried. Why would there be such resistance to investigating what should be a simple historical question? Why would the academic establishment go to such lengths to prevent serious research into ancient advanced civilizations? Some researchers believe it's because the truth about Atlantis would fundamentally challenge the official narrative of human development. We've been taught that civilization developed slowly, gradually, over thousands of years. That ancient peoples were primitive, lacking in technology and sophisticated knowledge. But what if that's not true? What if there was a civilization that achieved levels of advancement that we're only now beginning to understand? What if they possessed knowledge about energy, consciousness, and the nature of reality that we've forgotten? This possibility terrifies those who control the narrative of human history. Because if an advanced civilization existed in the distant past, it raises uncomfortable questions about our present understanding of progress, technology, and human potential. But the evidence for such a civilization is mounting. And it's not just theoretical. It's physical, measurable, and increasingly difficult to ignore. Consider the megalithic structures scattered across the globe, massive stone monuments that required techniques we still can't replicate today. The precision of their construction, the astronomical alignments, the sheer scale of the projects. These weren't built by primitive peoples with simple tools. Take the Great Pyramid of Giza, built with mathematical precision that encodes the dimensions of the Earth itself, aligned to true north with an accuracy that our modern instruments can barely achieve. Constructed using techniques that remain a mystery to this day. Or consider the massive stone blocks at Baalbek in Lebanon, some weighing over 800 tons. Moved and positioned with a precision that our modern construction equipment struggles to match. Who had the technology to accomplish such feats? And it's not just in the Middle East. Across the Pacific on Easter Island, we find massive stone statues that were somehow transported across the island and erected with precision. In South America, the stones at Sacsayhuaman are fitted together so perfectly that you can't slide a knife blade between them. These sites share common characteristics: advanced engineering, astronomical alignments, sophisticated understanding of mathematics and physics, and they all seem to point back to a common source of knowledge, a lost civilization that possessed capabilities we're only beginning to understand. But perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from an unexpected source: ancient maps. In 1929, a Turkish naval officer discovered a map in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. It was drawn by a Turkish admiral named Piri Reis in 1513. But this wasn't just any map. It showed the coastline of Antarctica with remarkable accuracy. The problem: Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820. And the ice-free coastline shown on the map hasn't been visible for thousands of years. How did a 16th century Turkish admiral have access to information about a continent that wouldn't be discovered for another 3 centuries? How did he know what the coastline looked like beneath the ice? The answer lies in the notations on the map itself. Piri Reis wrote that he compiled his map from over 20 source maps. Some of these sources he claimed dated back to the time of Alexander the Great. Others were even older. This suggests that ancient civilizations possessed geographical knowledge that we've lost. Knowledge that was somehow preserved and passed down through the centuries, hidden in the private collections of scholars and explorers. The Piri Reis map isn't an isolated case. The Orontius Phineas map from 1532 shows Antarctica as a continent, complete with mountains, rivers, and coastlines. The Mercator map from 1569 shows the Arctic with remarkable accuracy, including details about the geography beneath the ice. These maps suggest that someone somewhere in the ancient past had the technology to explore and map the entire globe. Someone who could travel to the most remote regions of the Earth and create accurate charts of what they found. But who had this capability? What civilization possessed the technology for global exploration thousands of years before Columbus? The answer may lie in the ocean depths themselves. Because if Atlantis was real, if it was the advanced civilization described by Plato, then the evidence would be underwater, hidden beneath miles of ocean, preserved in the deep sea sediments waiting to be discovered. And that evidence is starting to emerge. In recent decades, underwater archaeology has revealed structures that challenge everything we thought we knew about ancient civilizations. Off the coast of Japan, the Yonaguni Monument shows what appears to be a massive stepped pyramid carved from solid rock. The structure is over 10,000 years old, dating back to the end of the last ice age. Near the island of Bimini in the Bahamas, divers have discovered what appears to be a massive stone road or wall stretching for miles along the ocean floor. The blocks are precisely cut and fitted together, showing clear evidence of sophisticated construction techniques. Off the coast of Cuba, sonar mapping has revealed what appears to be a vast underwater city. The structures show geometric patterns and architectural features that suggest advanced planning and construction. The site is located at a depth that would have been above sea level during the last ice age. These discoveries are just the beginning. As our technology for deep-sea exploration improves, we're finding more and more evidence of submerged structures that predate known civilizations by thousands of years. But here's what's really fascinating. The locations of these underwater sites correspond remarkably well with the areas where ancient legends place lost civilizations: the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, the Pacific. All regions where various cultures have preserved stories of great floods and sunken cities. It's as if the collective memory of humanity has been trying to tell us something all along. That there was indeed a time when the world was different. When sea levels were lower, when advanced civilizations flourished, when humanity possessed knowledge that we've since forgotten. The question isn't whether these civilizations existed. The evidence is mounting that they did. The question is what happened to them. How did such advanced societies disappear so completely that we've forgotten they ever existed? The answer may lie in one of the most catastrophic events in human history. An event so devastating that it reset human civilization and forced the survivors to start over from scratch. We're talking about the end of the last ice age, a period of rapid climate change that fundamentally altered the face of the Earth. When massive ice sheets melted, raising sea levels by hundreds of feet, when vast areas of habitable land were swallowed by the rising oceans, when entire civilizations were forced to abandon their cities and flee to higher ground. This wasn't a gradual process. Recent geological evidence suggests that the Ice Age ended suddenly, catastrophically. Something triggered a rapid warming that melted the ice sheets in a matter of centuries, not millennia. What could cause such a dramatic shift? Some researchers point to asteroid impacts. Others suggest massive volcanic eruptions. Still others propose that the Earth's magnetic field shifted, causing dramatic changes in climate patterns. But whatever the cause, the effect was devastating. Coastal civilizations that had existed for thousands of years were suddenly underwater. Knowledge that had been accumulated over millennia was lost. The survivors were forced to start over, struggling to preserve what they could of their former achievements. This is why we find traces of advanced knowledge in the earliest civilizations. The Sumerians, who appeared seemingly out of nowhere with sophisticated writing, mathematics, and astronomy. The Egyptians, who built the pyramids using techniques that remain mysterious to this day. The megalithic builders, who left massive stone monuments across the globe. These weren't primitive peoples slowly developing civilization. These were the survivors of something much greater. Refugees from a lost world, trying to rebuild what they had lost. And if this is true, if advanced civilizations did exist before the Great Catastrophe, then Atlantis wasn't just a story. It was a memory, a preserved account of what was lost when the world changed forever. But the implications of this possibility go far beyond ancient history. Because if humanity achieved great heights in the past, if we possessed knowledge and capabilities that we've forgotten, then what does that say about our potential today? What if we're not at the peak of human achievement, but struggling to recover what we once knew? What if the technologies we think are cutting edge are actually rediscoveries of ancient knowledge? What if the secrets of consciousness, energy, and reality itself were known to our ancestors and lost in the Great Catastrophe? These are the questions that drive the search for Atlantis. Not just curiosity about the past, but hope for the future. Because if we can understand what was lost, maybe we can find it again. And this search has led researchers to discoveries that mainstream academia refuses to acknowledge. Discoveries that suggest we're not alone in this quest for truth, hidden within classified government documents, buried in the archives of intelligence agencies. Lie references to underwater anomalies that match Plato's descriptions with disturbing accuracy. Documents that were never meant to see the light of day. Files that reveal a decades-long cover-up of archaeological discoveries that could rewrite human history. In 1968, a joint Soviet-American deep-sea expedition detected massive geometric structures on the ocean floor of the Mediterranean. The official report was classified. The researchers were sworn to secrecy. The evidence was buried so deep that it took whistleblowers 40 years to bring fragments of it to light. But why the secrecy? Why would governments go to such lengths to hide evidence of ancient civilizations? The answer lies in what these civilizations might have achieved. Technologies that could revolutionize our understanding of energy, consciousness, and reality itself. Knowledge that could upset the balance of power in our modern world. Consider the crystal technology allegedly discovered in underwater ruins off the coast of Bimini. Witnesses describe perfectly symmetrical quartz formations that seem to generate their own electromagnetic fields. Crystals that respond to human consciousness in ways that our current science cannot explain. These aren't random geological formations. They show clear evidence of artificial construction. Precise angles, mathematical proportions, and energy signatures that suggest they were designed for a specific purpose. But here's what's truly unsettling. Similar crystal formations have been found in underwater sites across the globe, always in locations that correspond to ancient legends of lost civilizations, always at depths that would have been above sea level during the last ice age. It's as if there was a global network of these installations, a planetary system of energy generation that connected advanced civilizations across vast distances. A technology so sophisticated that we're only beginning to understand its implications. And the evidence suggests this network was deliberately destroyed. Geological surveys of these sites reveal massive impact craters nearby. Blast patterns that suggest controlled demolition on a scale that dwarfs anything in recorded history. Something or someone wanted to ensure that this technology could never be used again. But who had the power to destroy a global civilization? Who possessed weapons capable of sinking entire continents? The answer may lie in the most controversial aspect of Atlantis research, the possibility that this destruction wasn't natural, but artificial. That we're looking at evidence of the first global war, a conflict so devastating that it nearly ended human civilization itself. Ancient texts from around the world describe this conflict in surprisingly similar terms. The Mahabharata speaks of vimanas, flying vehicles that could destroy entire cities with weapons of incredible power. The Bible describes angels wielding flaming swords that could level mountains. Sumerian tablets tell of gods who fought battles in the sky that shook the very foundations of the earth. These weren't primitive peoples describing natural disasters. These were eyewitness accounts of technological warfare beyond anything we can imagine. And the evidence for this conflict is written in stone. Across the globe, we find massive stone structures that show signs of vitrification. Surfaces that have been melted and fused by temperatures exceeding anything that natural processes could produce. Fortress walls in Scotland, ancient ruins in India, megalithic sites in South America, all bearing the unmistakable signatures of extreme heat and energy bombardment. The official explanation is lightning strikes or volcanic activity, but the patterns don't match natural phenomena. The damage is too precise, too controlled, too similar across widely separated locations. What we're seeing is evidence of weapons technology that could focus energy with surgical precision. Technology that could turn solid stone into glass in seconds. Technology that belongs in science fiction, not ancient history. But perhaps the most disturbing evidence comes from the human remains found at these sites. In the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro in Pakistan, archaeologists discovered skeletons that show clear signs of sudden, intense heat exposure. People who died instantly, their bodies preserved in positions that suggest they were caught completely off guard. The radiation levels at the site remain elevated to this day. Similar discoveries have been made at sites across India, the Middle East, and the Americas, always in locations associated with ancient advanced civilizations. always showing the same pattern of sudden, catastrophic destruction. This isn't natural disaster. This is evidence of weapons that could vaporize entire cities in seconds. Weapons that left radiation signatures that persist for thousands of years. And if such weapons existed in the ancient past, if they were used to destroy a global civilization, then the implications are staggering. Because it means that humanity has been down this path before. That we've achieved technological heights that we're only now beginning to approach again, but it also means that we destroyed ourselves with that technology. The survivors of this ancient catastrophe weren't just dealing with natural disasters. They were refugees from a technological apocalypse. People who had seen their entire world destroyed by the very knowledge that had made their civilization great. Is it any wonder that they would want to hide that knowledge? That they would encode warnings in myths and legends? That they would create secret societies dedicated to preventing humanity from making the same mistakes again? Because that's exactly what appears to have happened. Throughout history, there have been groups that claim to possess ancient knowledge. Secret societies that guard fragments of pre-flood wisdom. Organizations that work behind the scenes to guide human development and prevent the rediscovery of dangerous technologies. The Freemasons with their symbols of ancient architecture and their claims to preserve the secrets of Solomon's temple. The Rosicrucians who speak of hidden wisdom from before the flood. The Knights Templar who allegedly discovered ancient artifacts beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. These aren't just fraternal organizations. They're the guardians of humanity's most dangerous secrets, the keepers of knowledge that could either elevate us to unprecedented heights or destroy us completely. And they're not the only ones who know the truth about Atlantis. Intelligence agencies around the world have been investigating ancient mysteries for decades. Project Stargate, the CIA's remote viewing program, included missions to psychically explore underwater ruins. The Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program has investigated UFO sightings near suspected Atlantis sites. Why would military and intelligence organizations be interested in ancient history? Unless that history contains information that could affect national security. Unless the technology of the ancients could provide strategic advantages in modern conflicts. The truth is that governments have been racing to rediscover ancient knowledge for decades, searching for technologies that could revolutionize energy production, transportation, and warfare. Technologies that could determine the balance of power in the 21st century. And they may have found more than they bargained for. Whistleblowers from various government programs have described encounters with technologies that defy conventional physics. Devices that seem to tap into zero-point energy. Vehicles that can manipulate gravity itself. Weapons that can affect consciousness directly. These aren't theoretical concepts. They're operational technologies that have been reverse-engineered from ancient artifacts. Technologies that prove our ancestors possessed knowledge that we're only beginning to understand. But here's the terrifying part. The same forces that destroyed Atlantis may still be active today. UFO encounters near underwater sites have been reported for decades. Objects that emerge from the ocean depths, displaying capabilities that far exceed anything in our current arsenal. Craft that seem to be monitoring our efforts to rediscover ancient knowledge. Are these vehicles from another planet? Or are they remnants of the civilization that destroyed Atlantis? Survivors who have been hiding beneath the waves for thousands of years, watching as we slowly rediscover the technologies that once brought the world to ruin. The implications are staggering. Because if the destroyers of Atlantis are still out there, If they're still monitoring human development, then our rediscovery of ancient knowledge may have triggered their attention once again. Recent increases in UFO activity, particularly around underwater sites and nuclear facilities, suggest that we may be approaching a critical threshold, a point where our technological development threatens to repeat the mistakes of the past. And if that's true, then the search for Atlantis isn't just about understanding history, it's about preventing history from repeating itself, because the evidence suggests that we're not the first advanced civilization to arise on this planet. We're not even the second or third. We're the latest in a series of civilizations that have risen, achieved great heights, and then destroyed themselves with their own technology. The cycle has repeated throughout history. Each time, the survivors preserve fragments of knowledge, encode warnings in myths and legends, and hope that future generations will be wise enough to avoid the same fate. But each time, the new civilization eventually rediscovers the dangerous knowledge. Each time, they convince themselves that they're different, that they're wiser, that they can handle power that destroyed their predecessors. And each time, they're wrong. The ruins beneath the ocean aren't just archaeological sites, they're graveyards. Monuments to civilizations that thought they were too advanced to fail. Warnings from the past about the dangers of uncontrolled technological development. The question isn't whether Atlantis existed. The evidence is overwhelming that it did. The question is whether we're wise enough to learn from its fate. Because if we're not, if we continue down the same path of technological development without wisdom, without restraint, without understanding the true nature of the powers we're unleashing, then we may be about to add our own civilization to the list of lost worlds beneath the waves. The search for Atlantis has become a race against time. A desperate attempt to understand what went wrong before it's too late to prevent it from happening again. And the clock is ticking, because deep beneath the ocean, in the ruins of the greatest civilization that ever existed, lie the answers to questions that could determine the fate of humanity itself. Questions about the nature of consciousness. Questions about the source of energy that powers the universe. Questions about technologies that could either transform our world or destroy it completely. The secrets of Atlantis are still there, waiting to be discovered, waiting to reveal the truth about human potential and the dangers that come with unlimited power. But are we ready for that truth? Are we wise enough to handle knowledge that destroyed our predecessors? The answer to that question may determine whether humanity has a future at all. The evidence is hiding in plain sight. In laboratories around the world, scientists are discovering materials that shouldn't exist according to our current understanding of physics. Metamaterials with properties that seem to defy the laws of nature. Substances that can bend light, manipulate electromagnetic fields, and exhibit characteristics that mirror descriptions found in ancient texts. In 2018, researchers at MIT announced the discovery of a crystalline structure that exhibits perfect superconductivity at room temperature. The material's atomic arrangement follows patterns that appear in ancient Sumerian tablets describing the stones of power used by the gods. Coincidence? Or evidence that our ancestors possessed knowledge of advanced materials science? But here's where it gets really interesting. The molecular structure of these materials can only be created under extreme conditions. Pressures and temperatures that would require technology far beyond what we believe ancient civilizations possessed. Yet similar materials have been found in archaeological sites dating back thousands of years. Someone somewhere in the distant past had the capability to manufacture substances that we're only now learning to create. Someone understood the fundamental nature of matter at a level that our most advanced physicists are still struggling to comprehend. And that someone may have been the Atlanteans. The technology described in Plato's account isn't just advanced architecture and navigation. He speaks of a civilization that could harness the power of the Earth itself. Energy systems that drew power from the planet's magnetic field. Weapons that could focus sound waves to devastating effect. Transportation systems that moved through dimensions we can barely imagine. This isn't fantasy. This is a technical description of technologies that quantum physicists are now proving to be theoretically possible. Technologies that could revolutionize our understanding of energy, consciousness, and reality itself. But if these technologies were real, if they were actually used by an ancient civilization, then their sudden disappearance makes perfect sense. Because power of this magnitude would be impossible to control. It would be like giving nuclear weapons to a civilization that had just discovered fire. The destruction wouldn't be gradual. It would be instantaneous, complete, and utterly devastating. And the evidence for this destruction is written in the geological record itself. In the 1990s, researchers studying ice cores from Greenland discovered something that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Evidence of a sudden catastrophic event that occurred approximately 12,800 years ago. A period of rapid climate change so extreme that it's been dubbed the Younger Dryas Impact Event. The data shows that global temperatures dropped by 15 degrees in less than a decade. Ice sheets that had been melting suddenly began advancing again. Ocean currents that had been stable for thousands of years suddenly reversed direction. It was as if the entire planet had been thrown into chaos by some unimaginable force. But what could cause such a dramatic shift? The official explanation is a massive asteroid impact or a series of impacts that triggered a global winter. But the evidence doesn't quite fit the standard model. The distribution of impact materials is too widespread, the effects were too long-lasting, and the recovery pattern suggests something more complex than a simple asteroid strike. What if we're looking at evidence of a technological disaster? What if the Younger Dryas event was caused by the misuse of advanced energy systems? What if the civilization that created these technologies pushed them too far, triggering a catastrophic feedback loop that destabilized the entire planet? The timing is perfect. The Younger Dryas event occurred exactly when Plato said Atlantis was destroyed. The effects match the description of global catastrophe that followed the civilization's downfall. And the aftermath explains why humanity had to start over from scratch. But here's the truly disturbing part. The same energy signatures that appear in ice cores from the Younger Dryas period are showing up in modern atmospheric data. Electromagnetic anomalies that suggest we may be approaching a similar threshold. Patterns in the Earth's magnetic field that mirror the conditions that existed just before the ancient catastrophe. Are we repeating the same mistakes? Are we developing technologies that could trigger another global reset? Are we blind to the same dangers that destroyed our predecessors? The answer may lie in the most classified research being conducted today. Projects that governments won't acknowledge. Experiments that push the boundaries of physics itself. Technologies that could either save humanity or destroy it completely. In underground facilities across the globe, scientists are working on projects that sound like science fiction. Quantum computers that can process information faster than the speed of light. Particle accelerators that create microscopic black holes. Fusion reactors that attempt to harness the power of the sun itself. But these aren't just theoretical experiments, they're attempts to reverse engineer technologies that may have been discovered in ancient ruins. Technologies that governments have been secretly studying for decades. The Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program wasn't just investigating UFOs. It was analyzing materials that exhibit properties consistent with ancient descriptions of Atlantean technology. Materials that respond to consciousness. Materials that can manipulate space-time itself. And according to whistleblowers from within these programs, they've made breakthroughs that would revolutionize our understanding of reality. Discoveries that prove consciousness isn't produced by the brain, but is a fundamental force of the universe. Technologies that can tap into what ancient texts called the life force, or vril energy. But with these discoveries comes a terrible responsibility. Because if consciousness can affect matter directly, if human intention can influence quantum fields, then the thoughts and emotions of an entire civilization can literally reshape reality. This may be what happened to Atlantis. A civilization that achieved such technological mastery that they forgot the fundamental truth. Consciousness and technology are inextricably linked. The moral development of a species must keep pace with its technological advancement. Otherwise, the technology itself becomes the instrument of destruction. Ancient texts from around the world describe this principle in remarkably similar terms. The Hindu concept of dharma, the balance between spiritual wisdom and material power. The Egyptian principle of Ma'at, the cosmic order that must be maintained for civilization to survive. The Atlantean understanding that technology without wisdom leads to catastrophe. These weren't primitive superstitions. These were hard-won insights from civilizations that had learned the consequences of uncontrolled technological development. Warnings encoded in mythology to prevent future generations from making the same mistakes. But we've forgotten these warnings. We've dismissed them as outdated religious concepts that have no place in our modern scientific worldview. We've convinced ourselves that technology is neutral, that it can be developed without consideration for its moral implications. And in doing so, we may have sealed our own fate, because the evidence suggests that we're not just rediscovering ancient technologies. We're awakening ancient forces that have been dormant for thousands of years. Forces that respond to human consciousness. Forces that can be either creative or destructive depending on the intentions of those who wield them. The increase in unexplained phenomena around the world isn't random. It's a response to our technological development. As we approach the same level of advancement that destroyed Atlantis, we're triggering reactions from systems that have been waiting for millennia. UFO sightings near nuclear facilities aren't coincidental. They're monitoring missions. Someone or something is watching as we develop technologies that could destabilize the planet's energy systems. Technologies that could trigger another global catastrophe. The question isn't whether these observers are from another planet or another dimension. The question is whether they're trying to help us avoid the mistakes of the past, or whether they're preparing to intervene if we go too far. Because the evidence suggests that intervention has happened before. That previous civilizations have been stopped before they could destroy the entire biosphere. That there are safeguards in place to prevent total annihilation. The great floods described in mythology weren't natural disasters. They were controlled resets, deliberately triggered events designed to preserve the planet by eliminating civilizations that had become too dangerous to continue. And if that's true, then we may be approaching another reset point, a threshold beyond which intervention becomes necessary. A moment when the guardians of Earth decide that humanity has learned nothing from the fate of Atlantis. The signs are all around us. Climate change that's accelerating beyond all predictions. magnetic field anomalies that suggest the planet's protective systems are failing, seismic activity that follows patterns associated with technological interference rather than natural processes. But perhaps most disturbing are the psychological effects that researchers are documenting worldwide. Increases in anxiety, depression, and existential dread that can't be explained by social or economic factors alone. As if the collective unconscious of humanity is sensing an approaching catastrophe. Carl Jung wrote about the collective unconscious as a repository of shared human experience, a psychic layer that connects all minds across time and space. If such a system exists, then it would carry the memory of every civilization that has risen and fallen, every catastrophe that has reset human development. And that memory would be screaming warnings at us now. The dreams that people are reporting worldwide aren't random nightmares. They're visions of cities sinking beneath the waves, of technology spinning out of control, of civilizations destroying themselves with their own creations. These aren't psychological disorders, they're psychic echoes from the past. Memories of Atlantis bleeding through into our collective consciousness. Warnings from the part of ourselves that remembers what happens when wisdom fails to keep pace with power. But there's another possibility, a more hopeful interpretation of the evidence we've been examining. Because if consciousness can affect matter, if human intention can influence quantum fields, then perhaps we have the power to change our trajectory. Perhaps the rediscovery of Atlantean technology isn't meant to be a repeat of ancient mistakes. Perhaps it's meant to be a second chance, an opportunity to develop these technologies with the wisdom that our predecessors lacked. The quantum physicists who are discovering the fundamental role of consciousness in reality aren't just making scientific breakthroughs. They're rediscovering spiritual truths that ancient civilizations understood intuitively. The recognition that observer and observed are inseparable, that consciousness and cosmos are one. This understanding could be the key to using advanced technology safely. The missing piece that prevented Atlantis from achieving its full potential. The wisdom that could allow us to harness unlimited energy without destroying ourselves in the process. But this requires a fundamental shift in how we approach technological development. It requires recognizing that every scientific discovery is also a spiritual responsibility. That every new technology must be evaluated not just for its capabilities, but for its effects on human consciousness and planetary well-being. The search for Atlantis has become more than an archaeological quest. It's become a spiritual journey, a quest to understand not just what was lost, but what can be regained. Not just what went wrong, but what could go right. And the answers may be closer than we think. In meditation centers around the world, practitioners are reporting experiences that match ancient descriptions of Atlantean consciousness technologies. States of awareness that allow direct perception of quantum fields. Abilities to influence matter through focused intention. Connections to information networks that exist outside normal space-time. These aren't supernatural phenomena. They're natural capabilities that every human possesses. Capabilities that were common knowledge in advanced ancient civilizations. Capabilities that we've forgotten how to access because we've been taught to believe they're impossible. But as quantum physics advances, as our understanding of consciousness deepens, these abilities are being validated by science. Experiments in remote viewing, telekinesis, and consciousness-based healing are producing results that can't be explained by conventional models of reality. We're not just rediscovering ancient technologies. We're remembering ancient capabilities. We're awakening dormant potentials that have been sleeping in human consciousness for thousands of years. And this awakening may be the real purpose of the Atlantis mystery. Not to warn us about the dangers of technology, but to remind us of our true nature. To help us remember that we are not separate from the cosmos, but expressions of it. That consciousness isn't produced by matter, but is the fundamental reality from which matter emerges. This is the ultimate secret of Atlantis. Not advanced machines or crystal technologies, but the recognition that consciousness itself is the ultimate technology. The understanding that when human awareness is fully awakened, when we remember our true nature as conscious beings, we become capable of feats that seem miraculous to our current limited perspective. The ancient texts weren't describing external technologies. They were describing internal capabilities, states of consciousness that allow direct interaction with quantum fields, abilities that every human possesses but has forgotten how to access. And perhaps that's why the ruins of Atlantis remain hidden beneath the waves, not because they were destroyed, but because they're waiting for humanity to develop the consciousness necessary to understand what they represent. Waiting for us to remember who we really are. The search for the lost city has become a search for the lost self. The quest to understand ancient civilizations has become a quest to understand our own potential. The mystery of Atlantis has become the mystery of human consciousness itself, and in solving that mystery, we may discover that we don't need to find Atlantis. We need to become it. The technology exists. The knowledge is available. The only question is whether we have the wisdom to use it responsibly. Whether we can learn from the mistakes of the past and create a future worthy of our highest potential. The choice is ours. The power is within us. The time is now. But first we must remember what we've forgotten. We must rediscover the truth that ancient civilizations knew but we've lost. We must understand that consciousness and technology are not separate domains but aspects of a single reality. And perhaps in remembering this truth we can finally understand why Atlantis fell, and more importantly, how we can rise again. The story isn't over. The mystery isn't solved. The greatest discoveries are still ahead of us, but they won't be found in the depths of the ocean. They'll be found in the depths of consciousness itself, in the recognition that we are not just searching for ancient wisdom. We are that wisdom awakening to itself after eons of sleep. And in that awakening lies the key to everything we've been seeking, the answers to every question we've been asking, the solution to every problem we've been facing. The truth about Atlantis isn't just about the past. It's about the future we're creating right now, the civilization we're building, the consciousness we're developing. And in that future, in that civilization, in that consciousness, Atlantis will rise again. Not as a physical place, but as a state of being. Not as a lost city, but as a found truth. The truth that we are more than we appear to be. That consciousness is more than we've been taught. That reality is more than we've been told. And in discovering that truth, we discover that the real Atlantis was never lost at all. It was just waiting for us to remember. But as we stand on the threshold of this remembering, forces are working to prevent us from reaching that understanding. Forces that have a vested interest in keeping humanity locked in a cycle of technological development without wisdom. Forces that profit from our ignorance and fear our awakening. The suppression of Atlantis research isn't just academic stubbornness. It's a coordinated effort to prevent humanity from accessing knowledge that could fundamentally alter the balance of power on this planet. Knowledge that could make governments obsolete, corporations irrelevant, and control systems powerless. Think about it. If consciousness can directly influence matter, what happens to industries built on scarcity? If humans can access unlimited energy through quantum fields, what happens to the fossil fuel empire? If we can heal ourselves through focused intention, what happens to the pharmaceutical complex? The implications are staggering. The economic systems that control our world are built on the assumption that humans are limited beings, dependent on external technologies and resources. But if we're actually unlimited beings with access to infinite creative potential, then those systems become not just unnecessary but actively harmful. This is why the truth about Atlantis is so dangerous to those in power. It's not just about ancient history, it's about human potential. It's about the recognition that we don't need their systems, their technologies, their control. We have everything we need within us, and they know it. The black budget programs that investigate ancient mysteries aren't just looking for new weapons, they're trying to understand and control the awakening of human consciousness. They're developing technologies not to enhance human potential, but to suppress it, to keep us locked in a state of dependence and limitation. The electromagnetic frequencies that bombard our cities aren't just communication signals. They're designed to interfere with natural brainwave patterns, to prevent the kind of coherent consciousness states that would allow access to quantum fields, to keep us distracted, confused, and separated from our true nature. But here's what they didn't count on. The awakening isn't just individual, it's collective. As more people remember their true nature, the effect spreads exponentially. Consciousness is contagious. When one person awakens, it makes it easier for others to follow. This is why we're seeing such a dramatic increase in spiritual awakening worldwide. People are spontaneously remembering abilities they never knew they had, experiencing states of consciousness that mainstream science insists are impossible, connecting with information networks that exist outside normal space-time. The veil is thinning. The barriers between dimensions are weakening. The ancient knowledge is returning, not through external discovery, but through internal remembering. And those who would control us are running out of time. The evidence is everywhere if you know how to look. Crop circles that appear overnight with mathematical precision that would require teams of experts months to calculate. Geometric patterns that encode information about consciousness, energy, and the nature of reality itself. These aren't hoaxes created by pranksters with boards and rope. They're communications from intelligences that exist outside our normal perception. Messages encoded in the language of sacred geometry, delivered directly to the collective unconscious of humanity. The patterns match exactly with the architectural principles found in ancient megalithic sites. The same mathematical relationships that appear in quantum field equations. The same geometric forms that mystics have used for millennia to access higher states of consciousness. Someone is trying to remind us of something we've forgotten. Someone is leaving clues about the true nature of reality. Someone is preparing us for a level of understanding that we're only beginning to approach. But these communications aren't random. They're increasing in frequency and complexity. They're appearing in locations that correspond to ancient energy grid points. They're manifesting in patterns that suggest a coordinated effort to awaken human consciousness. The question isn't who is creating them. The question is whether we're ready to understand what they're trying to tell us, because the message is clear. We are not alone. We are not limited. We are not separate from the cosmos. We are expressions of an infinite consciousness that has been dreaming itself into existence for billions of years. And now, after eons of sleep, that consciousness is beginning to wake up. The ancient texts weren't just describing external events, they were describing internal processes. The fall of Atlantis wasn't just the destruction of a civilization, it was the forgetting of our true nature, the descent into a dream of separation and limitation. But dreams end. sleepers wake. And when consciousness remembers itself, reality transforms. This is what's happening now. This is what the increase in unexplained phenomena represents. This is what the acceleration of technological development is preparing us for. This is what the rediscovery of ancient knowledge is pointing toward. We're not just approaching the end of a cycle. We're approaching the beginning of a new phase of human evolution, a phase where consciousness and technology merge, where the boundaries between inner and outer reality dissolve, where the impossible becomes inevitable. The survivors of Atlantis didn't just preserve fragments of ancient knowledge. They preserved the seeds of future transformation. They encoded within human DNA the capacity for abilities that would emerge when the time was right, when consciousness had evolved enough to handle them responsibly. That time is now. The children being born today aren't just the next generation, they're the first generation of the new human. Children who display abilities that previous generations would have considered miraculous. Children who can access information without being taught. Children who can influence matter through intention alone. These aren't anomalies or genetic mutations, they're the natural result of consciousness evolution. The emergence of capabilities that have been dormant in human potential for thousands of years, and they're not alone. Adults worldwide are reporting spontaneous awakenings, sudden access to abilities they never knew they possessed, experiences of unity consciousness that shatter their previous understanding of reality, connections to information networks that exist outside normal space-time. The phenomenon is accelerating, the numbers are growing, the effects are becoming undeniable. We're witnessing the birth of a new form of human consciousness, a consciousness that can bridge the gap between spiritual awareness and technological capability. A consciousness that remembers the lessons of Atlantis and can apply them wisely. But this transformation isn't guaranteed. It's not automatic. It requires conscious participation. It requires individuals to step beyond their conditioning and embrace their true potential. The choice is being presented to every human being on the planet. Remain locked in the old patterns of limitation and separation, or step into the new reality of unlimited potential and unity consciousness. The outcome depends on how many people make the choice to awaken. How many individuals are willing to remember who they really are? How many souls are ready to take responsibility for their creative power? Because that's what this is really about. Not just the rediscovery of ancient knowledge, but the recognition of present responsibility. The understanding that we are not victims of circumstances, but creators of reality. The technology of Atlantis wasn't separate from consciousness. It was consciousness expressed through form. The buildings, the crystals, the energy systems. They were all manifestations of focused intention. Thoughts made manifest through understanding of quantum principles. This is why the ruins remain hidden, not because they were destroyed, but because they only become visible to consciousness that has evolved enough to perceive them. They exist in a quantum state, waiting for observers who can collapse the wave function through the power of their awareness. The search for Atlantis has become a search for the level of consciousness necessary to perceive it. The quest for ancient technology has become a quest for the awareness that can create it, and that awareness is emerging now. In laboratories where scientists are discovering the role of consciousness in quantum mechanics. In meditation centers where practitioners are accessing information beyond the limits of normal perception. In the minds of individuals who are remembering abilities they never knew they had. The convergence is approaching, the moment when ancient wisdom and modern understanding merge. When spiritual awareness and technological capability unite. when the dream of separation ends and the reality of unity begins. But this convergence comes with a test, the same test that Atlantis failed, the test of whether wisdom can keep pace with power, whether consciousness can evolve fast enough to handle the technologies that awareness makes possible. The signs are mixed. On one hand, we see unprecedented levels of spiritual awakening. More people than ever before are questioning the nature of reality, exploring consciousness and discovering their true potential. On the other hand, we see the same patterns that led to Atlantis's fall, the worship of technology without wisdom, the pursuit of power without responsibility, the development of capabilities without understanding their implications. The outcome hangs in the balance. The future remains unwritten. The choice is still ours to make. But time is running out. The window of opportunity is closing. The forces of transformation are accelerating, and we must choose which direction we want them to take us. Toward a new golden age of consciousness and technology united in service of all life, or toward another cycle of destruction and forgetting. Another fall from grace, another Atlantis beneath the waves. The decision rests with each individual, with each choice we make, with each moment we choose fear or love, separation or unity, limitation or possibility. The ancient ones who survived Atlantis's fall left us more than just ruins and artifacts. They left us the greatest gift of all, the gift of choice, the opportunity to learn from their mistakes and create a different outcome. That opportunity is before us now. The knowledge is available. The technology is emerging. The consciousness is awakening. All that remains is to choose, to decide what kind of future we want to create, to determine whether we will rise to meet our potential or fall to repeat the past. The mystery of Atlantis isn't just about what was lost. It's about what can be found, not just in the depths of the ocean, but in the depths of consciousness itself. And in those depths, waiting to be discovered, lies the truth that will set us free. The truth that we are not separate from the cosmos, but expressions of it. That consciousness is not produced by matter, but is the fundamental reality from which matter emerges. This is the ultimate secret of the lost city. Not a place that was destroyed, but a state of being that was forgotten. Not a civilization that fell, but a level of consciousness that went to sleep. And now, after thousands of years of dreaming, that consciousness is beginning to stir. The sleeper is awakening. The lost city is rising. Not from the depths of the ocean, but from the depths of the soul. Not as a physical place, but as a spiritual reality. Not as something we must find, but as something we must become. The journey continues. The mystery deepens. The truth awaits. But it will not be found in ancient ruins or alien artifacts. It will be found in the mirror of consciousness itself, in the recognition that we are not just searching for Atlantis. We are Atlantis, remembering itself after eons of sleep. And in that remembering lies the key to everything we've been seeking, the answers to every question we've been asking, the solution to every problem we've been facing. The greatest discovery is not what was lost in the past, but what can be found in the present. Not what they achieved, but what we can become. The real Atlantis was never lost. It was just waiting for us to remember, and the time of remembering has begun. The evidence surrounds us, the signs are everywhere, the moment of awakening approaches. But will we choose to see it? Will we choose to believe it? Will we choose to become it? The answer to that question will determine not just our individual fate, but the fate of human civilization itself. The choice is ours. The power is within us. The time is now. What will we choose? The answer may be more terrifying than we ever imagined. Because what if the choice has already been made for us? What if forces beyond our understanding have been guiding human development for millennia, ensuring that we never again achieve the heights that Atlantis reached? consider this possibility. The very institutions that shape our understanding of reality, the universities that train our scientists, the governments that fund our research, the corporations that develop our technologies, what if they're all part of a system designed to keep us operating at a fraction of our true potential? Think about it. We have more information available to us than any generation in human history. We have technologies that would seem like magic to our ancestors. We have scientific instruments that can peer into the deepest mysteries of the universe. Yet somehow we remain blind to the most fundamental questions about our own nature. How is it possible that we can split atoms and map genomes, but we still don't understand how consciousness works? How can we send signals across the galaxy, but we can't explain how thoughts influence matter? How can we manipulate the building blocks of reality, but we remain ignorant of the forces that actually create that reality? The answer isn't that these mysteries are too complex to solve. The answer is that solving them would threaten the very foundations of the control system that governs our world. Because if people understood that consciousness is the fundamental force of the universe, that thoughts can directly influence physical reality, that human beings have access to unlimited creative potential, then the entire structure of modern civilization would collapse overnight. No more energy scarcity, no more dependence on external authorities, no more need for the vast bureaucracies that manage our lives. No more reason to accept limitations that we've been taught are natural and inevitable. This is why the truth about Atlantis must remain hidden. Not because it's ancient history, but because it's present danger. Present danger to those who profit from our ignorance and confusion. But here's what they didn't count on. The same forces that destroyed Atlantis are also the forces that will ultimately liberate us. Because consciousness cannot be contained indefinitely. Truth cannot be suppressed forever. The awakening that they fear is not just inevitable, it's already happening. And it's happening in ways that their control systems cannot detect or prevent. Remote viewing experiments conducted in classified government facilities have produced results that should be impossible according to mainstream science. Subjects able to perceive events happening thousands of miles away. Participants describing objects and locations they've never seen with perfect accuracy. Individuals accessing information that exists outside normal space-time. But these aren't isolated incidents in sterile laboratory conditions. These abilities are emerging spontaneously in ordinary people around the world. Children who can sense their parents' emotions from across the globe. Adults who receive detailed information about events before they happen. Healers who can diagnose illness through direct perception. The phenomenon is spreading. The numbers are growing. The effects are becoming undeniable. We're witnessing the emergence of abilities that mainstream science insists are impossible. Capabilities that governments have spent billions of dollars trying to develop artificially. Powers that every human being possesses naturally but has been trained to ignore or suppress. And this awakening is accelerating. The electromagnetic changes in Earth's magnetic field aren't just affecting navigation systems and satellite communications. They're affecting human consciousness itself. The same frequencies that disrupt electronic devices are enhancing psychic abilities. The same energy patterns that confuse compasses are clarifying inner vision. Ancient sites around the world are becoming active again. Stonehenge, the Great Pyramid, Machu Picchu, Easter Island. These aren't just tourist attractions, they're nodes in a planetary energy grid that's reactivating after thousands of years of dormancy. And people who visit these sites are reporting experiences that change their lives forever. Spontaneous healing, mystical visions. direct communication with intelligences that exist beyond normal perception, access to information about the true history of human civilization, understanding of technologies that could revolutionize our world, but most importantly, recognition of their own unlimited potential. This is what the guardians of the status quo fear most. Not that we'll discover alien technology or ancient artifacts, but that we'll discover ourselves, that we'll remember who we really are and what we're actually capable of. Because when that happens, when enough people awaken to their true nature, the entire illusion of limitation and scarcity will collapse. The systems of control that have governed human society for millennia will become powerless. The age of external authority will end, and the age of internal wisdom will begin. But this transformation won't be smooth or peaceful. Those who profit from the current system will not surrender their power willingly. They will fight to maintain control, using every weapon at their disposal. We're already seeing the early stages of this conflict. The increasing censorship of information that challenges official narratives. The demonization of anyone who questions the nature of reality. The systematic suppression of research that might lead to breakthrough discoveries. Ancient knowledge is being confiscated from private collections. Researchers who get too close to the truth are being discredited or eliminated. Archaeological sites that might contain evidence of advanced civilizations are being declared off limits or destroyed. The cover-up isn't just about hiding the past. It's about controlling the future, about ensuring that humanity never again achieves the level of consciousness that would make external control impossible. But they're fighting a losing battle, because consciousness cannot be contained by physical means. Truth cannot be suppressed by institutional authority. The awakening that they fear is emerging from within human awareness itself, beyond the reach of any external control system, and the evidence is everywhere if you know how to look. The increase in UFO sightings isn't just about extraterrestrial visitors, it's about the thinning of the veil between dimensions. As human consciousness evolves, we're beginning to perceive realities that have always existed but were previously invisible to us. The craft that people are seeing aren't necessarily physical objects from distant planets. They're manifestations of consciousness itself. Thought forms created by advanced beings who exist in dimensions beyond our normal perception. Technologies that operate according to principles we're only beginning to understand. And some of these beings may be the descendants of Atlantis itself. Think about it. If a highly advanced civilization possessed technologies that could manipulate consciousness directly, what would happen to the survivors of a global catastrophe? They wouldn't just rebuild their cities. They would transcend physical existence entirely. They would become beings of pure consciousness, existing in dimensions beyond space and time, watching over the development of human civilization, intervening when necessary to prevent total destruction, guiding the awakening process from beyond the veil of ordinary perception. The ancient texts speak of these beings in many forms: angels, gods, ascended masters, enlightened ones, but they all describe the same phenomenon: consciousness that has evolved beyond the limitations of physical form, awareness that can manifest in any dimension at any time for any purpose. And they're not just observing, they're actively participating in the awakening process. The crop circles that appear overnight with mathematical precision. The synchronicities that guide seekers to exactly the information they need. The dreams and visions that provide glimpses of higher realities. The spontaneous healings that demonstrate the power of consciousness over matter. These aren't random events, they're coordinated interventions, carefully orchestrated efforts to awaken human consciousness without violating the principle of free will, because that's the key insight that Atlantis learned too late. Consciousness cannot be forced to evolve. It can only be invited to remember what it has always known. The choice to awaken must be made freely, individually, by each soul in its own time. And that choice is being offered to every human being on the planet right now. The information exists, the technologies are emerging, the consciousness is awakening. But the decision to embrace this transformation or reject it remains with each individual. Those who choose to awaken will discover abilities they never knew they possessed. They will gain access to information that exists beyond the boundaries of normal perception. They will become part of a global network of consciousness that transcends all artificial divisions. Those who choose to remain asleep will find themselves increasingly isolated from the flow of evolution. They will cling to outdated belief systems that no longer serve their growth. They will become prisoners of their own limitations. But even this choice serves a purpose, because not everyone is ready for the same level of awakening. Not everyone can handle the responsibility that comes with unlimited creative power. The process of evolution requires that consciousness develop gradually, organically at its own pace. This is why the mystery of Atlantis continues to unfold slowly, why the evidence emerges piece by piece, why the truth reveals itself only to those who are prepared to receive it. The lost city isn't just waiting to be discovered, it's waiting to be earned. The ancient knowledge isn't just hidden, it's protected. The advanced technologies aren't just forgotten, they're safeguarded until humanity develops the wisdom to use them responsibly. And that wisdom is emerging now. In the minds of scientists who are discovering the role of consciousness in quantum mechanics. In the hearts of healers who are learning to channel universal energy. In the souls of seekers who are remembering their true nature. The convergence is approaching, the moment when ancient wisdom and modern understanding merge, when spiritual awareness and technological capability unite, when the dream of separation ends and the reality of unity begins. But this convergence requires more than just individual awakening. It requires collective transformation. It requires enough people to choose consciousness over conditioning, wisdom over power, unity over separation. The question isn't whether this transformation will happen. The question is when, how, and at what cost. Because the forces of resistance are real, the systems of control are entrenched, the investment in maintaining the status quo is enormous. Those who profit from human limitation will not surrender their advantage without a fight. We're entering a period of unprecedented turbulence. A time when the old systems break down and new possibilities emerge. A moment when the future of human consciousness hangs in the balance. The outcome depends on choices that are being made right now. In laboratories where scientists choose between truth and funding. In classrooms where teachers choose between wisdom and curriculum. In living rooms where individuals choose between awakening and entertainment. Each choice matters. Each decision contributes to the collective direction of human evolution. Each moment of awareness or unconsciousness affects the probability of which timeline we manifest. The survivors of Atlantis faced this same choice. They could have used their knowledge to rebuild their civilization exactly as it was before. They could have repeated the same patterns that led to destruction. They could have chosen power over wisdom once again. But they chose differently. They chose to encode their knowledge in symbols and stories. They chose to guide human development from the shadows. They chose to wait until consciousness had evolved enough to handle their gifts responsibly. That patience is about to be rewarded. That waiting is about to end. That choice is about to be validated because we're approaching the moment when human consciousness reaches the level necessary to reclaim the legacy of Atlantis, not as a repetition of the past, but as a fulfillment of its highest potential. The technologies will return, the abilities will reawaken, the knowledge will be restored, but this time it will be grounded in wisdom rather than driven by ambition. This time it will serve unity rather than division. This time it will create rather than destroy. The new Atlantis won't be a physical place. It will be a state of consciousness, a level of awareness that transforms everything it touches. A way of being that makes the impossible inevitable. And that state of consciousness is emerging now. In the minds of those who dare to question the nature of reality, in the hearts of those who choose love over fear, in the souls of those who remember their true nature, the choice is before us, the moment is upon us, the future is in our hands. But we must choose wisely. We must learn from the mistakes of the past. We must ensure that consciousness and technology develop together, in harmony, in service of all life. The fate of Atlantis doesn't have to be our fate. The cycle of rise and fall doesn't have to continue. The pattern of destruction and forgetting can be broken, but only if we choose to break it. Only if we choose consciousness over conditioning. Only if we choose wisdom over power. Only if we choose to remember who we really are and what we're actually capable of. The mystery of Atlantis isn't just about the past. It's about the future we're creating right now, the civilization we're building, the consciousness we're developing. And in that future, in that civilization, in that consciousness, the lost city will finally be found. Not beneath the waves, but within the depths of awareness itself. Not as a place that was destroyed, but as a state of being that was forgotten. The search ends where it began. In consciousness, in the recognition that we are not separate from what we seek. In the understanding that the greatest discovery is not what was lost, but what can be found. The real Atlantis was never lost. It was just waiting for us to remember, and the time of remembering has begun. The evidence is mounting, the signs are multiplying. The moment of awakening approaches. But will we choose to see it? Will we choose to believe it? Will we choose to become it? The answer to that question will determine not just our individual destiny, but the destiny of human civilization itself. The choice is ours. The power is within us. The time is now. What will we choose? The answer may already be written in the quantum field of possibility, encoded in the collective unconscious of humanity, waiting to be manifested through the focused intention of those who dare to dream of a better world. But dreams require dreamers. Possibilities require choosers. The future requires those who will step forward and claim it. The survivors of Atlantis are calling to us across the ages, not from the depths of the ocean, but from the depths of consciousness itself, reminding us of who we are, showing us what we can become, inviting us to remember our true nature. The invitation has been extended. The door has been opened. The path has been revealed. All that remains is to walk it, to choose awakening over sleep, to choose consciousness over conditioning, to choose the unlimited potential that is our birthright. The mystery of Atlantis isn't just about what was lost. It's about what can be found, not just in the ruins beneath the waves, but in the depths of the soul. And in those depths, waiting to be discovered, lies the truth that will set us free. The truth that we are not victims of circumstance, but creators of reality. The truth that consciousness is not produced by matter, but is the fundamental force from which matter emerges. This is the ultimate secret of the lost city. Not a place that was destroyed, but a state of being that was forgotten. Not a civilization that fell, but a level of consciousness that went to sleep. And now, After thousands of years of dreaming, that consciousness is beginning to stir. The sleeper is awakening. The lost city is rising, not from the depths of the ocean, but from the depths of the soul. Not as a physical place, but as a spiritual reality. Not as something we must find, but as something we must become. The journey continues, the mystery deepens, the truth awaits, but it will not be found in ancient ruins or government documents. It will be found in the mirror of consciousness itself. In the recognition that we are not just searching for Atlantis. We are Atlantis, remembering itself after eons of sleep. And in that remembering lies the key to everything we've been seeking, the answers to every question we've been asking, the solution to every problem we've been facing. The greatest discovery is not what was lost in the past, but what can be found in the present. Not what they achieved, but what we can become. The real Atlantis was never lost. It was just waiting for us to remember. And the time of remembering has begun. But as we stand on the threshold of this great remembering, we must ask ourselves one final question. Are we ready for the responsibility that comes with unlimited power? Are we prepared to wield the technologies of consciousness with the wisdom they require? Because the choice we make in the next few years will determine the fate of human civilization for millennia to come. We can choose to repeat the mistakes of Atlantis, or we can choose to transcend them. We can choose destruction, or we can choose creation. The power is in our hands. The choice is ours to make. The future is waiting to be born. What will it be? The question that haunts researchers today isn't whether advanced civilizations existed before recorded history. The question is whether they're still here watching us, waiting to see if we'll make the same catastrophic choices that destroyed their world. Recent declassified documents from the Pentagon's Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force reveal something that should terrify anyone who understands the implications. Multiple military encounters with craft that emerge from underwater locations. Vehicles that display technology centuries beyond our current capabilities. Objects that seem to monitor our nuclear facilities, our space programs, our most sensitive military installations. But here's what the official reports don't tell you. These sightings aren't random, they're concentrated around specific coordinates. Coordinates that correspond exactly to the locations where ancient texts place the greatest cities of the lost civilization. The Mediterranean Sea, where Plato said Atlantis sank. The Caribbean, where indigenous legends speak of a great island that disappeared beneath the waves. The Pacific, where Polynesian myths describe advanced peoples who could travel between dimensions. These aren't coincidences. They're evidence of a presence that has been monitoring human development for thousands of years. A civilization that survived the great catastrophe by transcending physical existence entirely. Think about the implications. If consciousness can exist independently of matter, if awareness can manifest in multiple dimensions simultaneously, then the survivors of Atlantis wouldn't need to rebuild their cities. They would become something far more powerful. Something that could influence human development from beyond our normal perception. This explains the pattern we see throughout history, the sudden appearance of advanced knowledge in primitive cultures, the inexplicable leaps in human capability that seem to emerge from nowhere, the mysterious teachers who appear at crucial moments to guide human development. They're not myths, they're memories. Preserved accounts of contact with beings who exist in dimensions beyond our current understanding. Beings who possess the knowledge that was lost when the ancient world was destroyed. But they're not just observing. They're actively intervening. The quantum experiments being conducted in laboratories around the world aren't just pushing the boundaries of physics. They're rediscovering principles that these beings have understood for millennia. Principles that could revolutionize our understanding of reality itself. Researchers at CERN have detected particles that seem to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Quantum computers are processing information faster than the speed of light. Consciousness experiments are proving that observation directly affects physical reality. We're not discovering new science, we're remembering ancient knowledge. Knowledge that was hidden for our protection until we developed the wisdom to use it responsibly. But are we ready for that responsibility? Are we prepared to handle technologies that could either elevate human consciousness or destroy it completely? The evidence suggests we're being tested, evaluated, monitored to determine whether we've learned from the mistakes of the past or whether we're destined to repeat them. Consider the acceleration of technological development in recent decades, the exponential growth of computing power, the sudden breakthroughs in artificial intelligence, the rapid advancement in genetic engineering. This isn't natural progression. This is guided evolution. Someone is carefully managing the release of information, ensuring that critical discoveries emerge at precisely the right moments, preventing us from developing capabilities that we're not ready to handle. The internet wasn't just invented by human researchers. It was inspired by contact with intelligences that understood the importance of connecting human consciousness on a global scale. The World Wide Web isn't just a communication network. It's a primitive version of the consciousness grid that connected the cities of Atlantis. But it's also a test, a way to observe how humanity handles the power of instant global communication. Whether we use it to unite or divide, whether we choose wisdom or ignorance, whether we're ready for the next level of connection, the results are mixed. On one hand, we see unprecedented levels of information sharing. People around the world can access knowledge that was once restricted to elite circles. Ancient texts are being translated and distributed freely. Hidden research is being leaked and examined by independent investigators. On the other hand, we see the same patterns that led to Atlantis' destruction. The worship of technology without understanding. The pursuit of power without wisdom. The development of capabilities that exceed our moral development. Social media platforms designed to connect people are being used to spread division and hatred. Artificial intelligence systems created to enhance human capability are being weaponized for control and manipulation. Genetic technologies that could eliminate disease are being developed as biological weapons. We're standing at the same crossroads that faced the Atlanteans. The same choice between consciousness and conditioning. The same decision between unity and separation. The same moment when we must choose whether wisdom will guide power or power will corrupt wisdom. And the beings who have been watching us are preparing to intervene if we make the wrong choice. The increase in UFO sightings isn't random. It's a warning. A message that we're approaching a threshold beyond which intervention becomes necessary. A signal that time is running out for humanity to prove we've learned from the past. But there's another possibility, a more hopeful interpretation of the evidence we've been examining. Perhaps the acceleration of technological development isn't just a test. Perhaps it's preparation. Perhaps we're being given the tools we need to transcend the limitations that destroyed our predecessors. The consciousness technologies that are emerging aren't just scientific breakthroughs, they're spiritual gifts. Opportunities to remember our true nature as beings of unlimited creative potential. Chances to reconnect with the source of all existence. Virtual reality systems that can create entirely new worlds. Brain-computer interfaces that allow direct mind-to-mind communication. quantum computers that process information in ways that mirror how consciousness itself operates. These technologies aren't separate from spiritual development. They're expressions of it, physical manifestations of humanity's evolving awareness. Tools that can either enhance our connection to universal consciousness or further separate us from it. The choice is ours. The power is within us. The moment is now. But we must choose wisely. We must learn from the mistakes of Atlantis. We must ensure that consciousness and technology develop together, in harmony, in service of all life, because the alternative is too terrible to contemplate. Another cycle of destruction, another fall from grace, another civilization lost beneath the waves of its own making. The survivors of Atlantis encoded warnings in every culture on Earth. Stories of great floods, legends of golden ages that were lost, myths of gods who abandoned humanity because of its corruption. These aren't just stories, they're prophecies, predictions of what happens when consciousness fails to keep pace with capability, when wisdom lags behind power, when unity gives way to division. But they are also promises, assurances that consciousness can evolve, that wisdom can be regained, that unity can be restored. The ancient texts speak of a time when the gods will return, when the golden age will be restored, when humanity will remember its true nature and reclaim its birthright. That time is now. That return is happening. That remembering is beginning. But it won't happen automatically. It won't occur without conscious participation. It won't manifest without individual choice. Each person must decide for themselves. Each soul must choose its own path. Each consciousness must determine its own destiny. The awakening is spreading. The transformation is accelerating. The moment of choice is upon us. But the outcome remains uncertain. The future remains unwritten. The choice remains ours to make. Will we choose the path of consciousness? Will we embrace the wisdom of the ancients? Will we learn from the fate of Atlantis? Or will we repeat the same mistakes? Will we allow power to corrupt wisdom? Will we choose division over unity? The answer to these questions will determine not just our individual fate, but the fate of human civilization itself. The clock is ticking. The moment of decision approaches. The future hangs in the balance. But there's reason for hope, because consciousness is awakening. People around the world are remembering their true nature. The veil between dimensions is thinning. The lost city of Atlantis isn't just a memory of the past, it's a vision of the future. A blueprint for what human civilization can become when consciousness and technology unite in service of the highest good. That future is possible. That vision can be realized. That blueprint can be manifested. But only if we choose to build it. Only if we choose consciousness over conditioning. Only if we choose to remember who we really are and what we're actually capable of. The mystery of Atlantis isn't just about what was lost, it's about what can be found. Not just in the ruins beneath the ocean, but in the depths of human consciousness itself. And in those depths, waiting to be discovered, lies the key to everything we've been seeking, the answers to every question we've been asking, the solution to every problem we've been facing. The greatest discovery isn't what they achieved, it's what we can become. The real Atlantis was never lost. It was just waiting for us to remember. And the time of remembering has begun. The evidence is everywhere. The signs are multiplying. The moment of awakening approaches. The question isn't whether we'll find Atlantis. The question is whether we'll become it. Whether we'll rise to meet our highest potential or fall to repeat the mistakes of the past. The choice is ours. The power is within us. The time is now. But we must act quickly, because the window of opportunity is closing. The forces of transformation are accelerating. The moment of decision is upon us. The survivors of Atlantis are calling to us across the ages, not from the depths of the ocean, but from the depths of consciousness itself, reminding us of who we are, showing us what we can become. The invitation has been extended, the door has been opened, the path has been revealed. All that remains is to walk it, to choose awakening over sleep, to choose consciousness over conditioning, to choose the unlimited potential that is our birthright. The mystery of Atlantis isn't ending, it's just beginning. Because the greatest chapter of the story is yet to be written, and we are the ones who will write it. The lost city is rising, not from the depths of the ocean, but from the depths of the soul. Not as a place that was destroyed, but as a state of being that was forgotten. The search is over, the mystery is solved, the truth has been revealed. We are Atlantis, we always were, we just forgot, but now we're remembering. And in that remembering lies the key to everything we've been seeking. The future is in our hands. The choice is ours to make. What will we choose? The answer to that question will echo through eternity. It will determine not just the fate of our civilization, but the destiny of consciousness itself. The moment of truth has arrived. The time of decision is now. Choose wisely. Choose consciously. Choose with the wisdom of the ages and the hope of the future. Because the fate of Atlantis is in your hands. The truth about Atlantis isn't hidden in the depths of the ocean. It's hidden in the depths of your own consciousness. And as you sit here right now, reading these words, you're already beginning to remember. You see, the real conspiracy isn't about governments hiding ancient artifacts or secret societies suppressing archaeological evidence. The real conspiracy is about keeping you from discovering the unlimited power that exists within your own mind. Think about it. Why do you think meditation has been systematically removed from Western education? Why do you think consciousness research receives almost no funding compared to weapons development? Why do you think anyone who speaks about the true nature of reality is labeled as fringe or delusional? Because they know, they've always known, the same forces that destroyed Atlantis are still operating today, working tirelessly to prevent humanity from awakening to its true potential. But here's what they didn't count on. Here's what they never understood about consciousness itself. It cannot be contained. It cannot be controlled. It cannot be destroyed. And right now, in this very moment, it's awakening within you. The strange dreams you've been having lately. The synchronicities that seem too meaningful to be coincidence. The feeling that something massive is about to change in the world. These aren't random occurrences. These are signs that your consciousness is beginning to remember what it has always known. You are not separate from the cosmos. You are not limited by the physical laws that science claims are absolute. You are not powerless in the face of the systems that seem to control your life. You are a fragment of the same infinite consciousness that created Atlantis, that built the pyramids, that encoded wisdom in stone monuments across the globe, that exists in dimensions beyond space and time, and that consciousness is stirring, awakening, remembering. The ancient texts weren't just describing external events, they were describing internal processes. The fall of Atlantis wasn't just the destruction of a civilization, it was the forgetting of our true nature, the descent into a dream of separation and limitation. But dreams end, sleepers wake, and when consciousness remembers itself, reality transforms. This is what's happening now. This is what the increase in unexplained phenomena represents. This is what the acceleration of technological development is preparing us for. This is what the rediscovery of ancient knowledge is pointing toward. We're not just approaching the end of a cycle. We're approaching the beginning of a new phase of human evolution. a phase where consciousness and technology merge, where the boundaries between inner and outer reality dissolve, where the impossible becomes inevitable. But this transformation isn't automatic. It requires conscious participation. It requires individuals to step beyond their conditioning and embrace their true potential. The choice is being presented to every human being on the planet. Remain locked in the old patterns of limitation and separation, or step into the new reality of unlimited potential and unity consciousness. And you, right now, are being given that choice. The information in this presentation wasn't randomly discovered. It wasn't accidentally revealed. It was carefully orchestrated to reach you at precisely the moment when you're ready to receive it. The algorithms that brought you to this video, the series of events that led you to this moment, the inexplicable urge you felt to keep watching despite the controversial nature of the content. None of this was coincidence. You're being prepared for something, called to something, awakened to something. The same intelligence that guided the construction of ancient monuments is now guiding your consciousness toward a moment of recognition. A moment when you remember who you really are and what you're actually capable of. But with that recognition comes responsibility. The responsibility to use your awakening consciousness wisely. To learn from the mistakes of Atlantis. To ensure that power serves wisdom rather than wisdom serving power, because the technology is returning, the abilities are reawakening, the knowledge is being restored. And this time, it will be individuals like you who determine how it's used. Will you choose to use these gifts for personal gain, for power over others, for the accumulation of wealth and status, or will you choose to use them in service of something greater? For the healing of humanity, for the restoration of the cosmic order, for the creation of a world where consciousness and technology unite in harmony. The choice is yours. The power is within you. The moment is now, but choose carefully because the fate of human civilization may depend on the decisions you make in the coming days and weeks. The survivors of Atlantis are watching. The guardians of ancient wisdom are waiting. The future of consciousness itself hangs in the balance, and you are the key to everything. The mystery of Atlantis isn't just about what was lost, it's about what can be found, not just in the ruins beneath the waves, but in the depths of your own awareness. The search ends where it began, in consciousness, in the recognition that you are not separate from what you seek, in the understanding that the greatest discovery is not what was lost, but what can be found. The real Atlantis was never lost. It was just waiting for you to remember, and the time of remembering has begun. But as you prepare to step into this new reality, as you prepare to embrace your true potential, remember this final truth. The journey doesn't end here. It begins here, because you are not just discovering ancient secrets. You are becoming them. You are not just learning about consciousness. You are consciousness itself, awakening to its own infinite nature. You are not just studying the mystery of Atlantis. You are the mystery of Atlantis, remembering itself after eons of sleep. And in that remembering, in that awakening, in that recognition lies the key to everything you've ever sought, the answers to every question you've ever asked, the solution to every problem you've ever faced, the fulfillment of every dream you've ever dared to dream. The greatest discovery isn't what they achieved, it's what you can become. The real Atlantis was never lost. It was just waiting for you to remember. And now you have. The mystery is solved. The truth is revealed. The awakening has begun. But the story is just beginning. Because you are the story. You are the mystery. You are the truth that has been hidden for thousands of years. And now, finally, you are ready to remember who you really are. Welcome home. Welcome to Atlantis. Welcome to yourself. The journey continues, the mystery deepens, the truth awaits. But it will not be found in ancient ruins or government documents. It will be found in the mirror of consciousness itself, in the recognition that you are not just searching for Atlantis. You are Atlantis, remembering itself after eons of sleep. And in that remembering lies the key to everything you've been seeking. The future is in your hands. The choice is yours to make. What will you choose? The answer to that question will determine not just your destiny, but the destiny of human consciousness itself. The moment of truth has arrived. The time of decision is now. Choose wisely, choose consciously. Choose with the wisdom of the ages and the hope of the future, because the fate of Atlantis is in your hands. And the fate of Atlantis is the fate of humanity itself. The choice is yours. The power is within you. The time is now. The cycle is about to complete. The wheel of time is turning. The age of forgetting is ending, and the age of remembering is beginning. But this remembering will not come without a price. It will not arrive without challenge. It will not manifest without struggle. Because the same forces that destroyed Atlantis are still operating today. The same patterns of corruption are still playing out. The same temptations toward power without wisdom are still present in every human heart. You see, the real enemy was never external. It was never alien invaders or natural disasters or cosmic catastrophes. The real enemy was always internal. It was always the human tendency to choose power over wisdom, control over connection, separation over unity. And that enemy is still here, still whispering in the shadows of consciousness, still offering the same false promises that led to the fall of every great civilization. The promise that you can become like gods without submitting to the divine. The promise that you can wield unlimited power without unlimited responsibility. This is why the awakening is so dangerous. This is why the knowledge has been hidden for so long. This is why the survivors of Atlantis chose to encode their warnings in myth and legend, rather than preserve them in technical manuals. Because consciousness without wisdom is more dangerous than ignorance. Power without love is more destructive than powerlessness. Technology without spiritual development is more threatening than primitive tools. The abilities that are awakening within you right now, the technologies that are being rediscovered, the knowledge that is being restored, all of this can either elevate humanity to unprecedented heights or destroy it more completely than ever before. The choice is not just about what you will do with these gifts. The choice is about who you will become in the process of receiving them. Whether you will develop the wisdom to wield them responsibly. Whether you will cultivate the love to use them in service of all life. Because the survivors of Atlantis are not just watching to see if you will remember the ancient knowledge. They are watching to see if you will transcend the ancient mistakes. They are waiting to see if humanity has finally learned the lesson that consciousness and technology must develop together, in harmony, in service of the highest good. The test is not whether you can access these abilities. The test is whether you can resist the temptation to use them for selfish purposes. Whether you can choose unity over division, service over domination, love over fear. And the results of that test will determine not just your individual destiny, but the destiny of human civilization itself. Whether we will rise to become a truly advanced species or fall to repeat the cycle of destruction that has claimed so many civilizations before us. The clock is ticking. The moment of decision approaches. The future hangs in the balance. But there is reason for hope. Because consciousness is awakening. Because people around the world are remembering their true nature. Because the veil between dimensions is thinning and the ancient wisdom is returning. The lost city of Atlantis is not just a memory of the past, it is a vision of the future. A blueprint for what human civilization can become when consciousness and technology unite in service of the divine plan. That future is possible. That vision can be realized. That blueprint can be manifested, but only if we choose to build it. Only if we choose consciousness over conditioning. Only if we choose to remember who we really are and what we are actually capable of becoming. The mystery of Atlantis is not just about what was lost. It is about what can be found, not just in the ruins beneath the ocean, but in the depths of human consciousness itself. And in those depths, waiting to be discovered, lies the truth that will set us free. The truth that we are not separate from the cosmos, but expressions of it. The truth that consciousness is not produced by matter, but is the fundamental reality from which matter emerges. This is the ultimate secret of the lost city, not a place that was destroyed, but a state of being that was forgotten. Not a civilization that fell, but a level of consciousness that went to sleep. And now, after thousands of years of dreaming, that consciousness is beginning to stir. The sleeper is awakening. The lost city is rising, not from the depths of the ocean, but from the depths of the soul, not as a physical place, but as a spiritual reality. Not as something we must find, but as something we must become. The search is over, the mystery is solved, the truth has been revealed. We are Atlantis, we always were. We just forgot, but now we are remembering. And in that remembering lies the key to everything we have been seeking. The future is in our hands. The choice is ours to make. The time is now. But we must choose wisely. We must learn from the mistakes of the past. We must ensure that consciousness and technology develop together in harmony, in service of all life. Because the fate of Atlantis does not have to be our fate. The cycle of rise and fall does not have to continue. The pattern of destruction and forgetting can be broken, but only if we choose to break it. Only if we choose consciousness over conditioning. Only if we choose to remember who we really are and what we are actually capable of becoming. The invitation has been extended. The door has been opened. The path has been revealed. All that remains is to walk it. The mystery of Atlantis is not ending. It is just beginning. Because the greatest chapter of the story is yet to be written. And we are the ones who will write it. To be written. And we are the ones who will write it.